Hey everybody, you ever thought you knew what you were going to say and then that little still small voice in you's like, no, 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 not that, this. And for me, that's what happened this week. I really had something completely different planned for a talk. And as I was preparing for it and praying over it and making notes and stuff, um, the word authenticity kept on coming up over and over and over again. And so, I figured God had a better plan than what I had planned. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. And it's fitting too because in our first episode, I ended it with a prayer that a friend had written that me and my family we say throughout the day every day. And so he's one of the most authentic Christians that I've ever met in my entire life. And so in this video, I wanted to kind of give you a little introduction to him and share some stories about that. But before I get to that, let me just go ahead and give you a little bit of the backstory. So for me, there was a time in my life where I wasn't necessarily struggling with my faith in God. It was more struggling to stay connected to the church, to organized religion. We've all had those moments of these interactions with people that um, are just robotic and pre-programmed, and I've been guilty of doing it myself, just like other people have done it to me. And but it was something that I was really wrestling with was a lack of authenticity in the church. And there's also there's other things going on in my life that was just kind of just a dark and depressing time. And growing up in organized religion, I was taught that, if you don't go to church on Sunday, you go to hell. And that's what kept me going to church, which for me, it wasn't all a bad thing completely. It's the wrong reason to go to church, um, but it did keep me going enough for that, even if it was for the completely wrong reasons. And so for probably a month or longer, I would sit outside of church and I didn't want to even go in there. And so I would sit on a bench outside, and it was a church I'd been going to for probably 20 plus years. And it was a fairly large church. And most people, if they didn't really know me, they at least knew my name, and so I'm just sitting on this bench outside of church and people are walking into church and, they'll just say, hey, Steve, how are you? So those automatic questions and introductions and stuff that we just do, and the automatic reply is, hey, I'm good. How are you? And but it hit me when I'm in that moment, like I really want to be authentic with them and I want to share how I really am. But I realized that as the words are even thinking about coming out of my mouth, the person that asked that question, they're 20 feet down the aisle from me. They've moved on. They didn't even wait for a response. And it was a very frustrating time for me to be in the church. Um, and so, and again, there's some other things I was wrestling with that I'll share in another episode, but I just needed to talk to somebody about it, and so I sought out somebody for spiritual counseling and advice, and he said we would meet once a month, and there's some other issues that I was struggling with the church. He would kind of help me through, and didn't answer all my questions, but he did what he could. But he kept on referencing material from a priest up in Memphis, and and so I would watch some of his YouTube videos and stuff, and a lot of what he spoke about were like the exact same things that I was wrestling with. And so, but anyway, I would watch those from time to time, and kept on going to spiritual counseling. And but the problems that my circumstances didn't really change in the church. It was still that same, just the lack of genuineness and authenticity that I was struggling with, and it got to a point where I'm like, it was just infuriating me. I mean, I just couldn't deal with it anymore. and I'm sitting there thinking, well, they're not doing me any good, and if I respond in the way I feel, I'm not really doing them any good, and so it just makes sense. We just need to go separate ways. And I was just about there when I had the thought that I'm going to call this priest up in Memphis, and because at the time my wife's grandparents lived in Memphis, so we go to visit them from time to time. And I thought, you know what, I don't have anything to lose. I'm going to call them up and see what happens. And so I called him on a Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving of that year, and left him a voicemail. And then he called me back on Thanksgiving Day, and he said, hey, that sounds great. I'd love to meet you and talk to you. Just come on up. And so we drove up the next day on Friday, and we got settled in at her grandparents' house, and then I ran over to where he was, and we met. And that was such a breath of fresh air, I guess, meeting Father Knight. He had just such a huge impact in my life. And right off the bat, when I met him, I knew that there was something different about him. It's kind of like that Sidewalk Prophet song, Something Different. If you get a chance, listen to the lyrics of that song. And it's like, what he has, I want. And so we sat there for probably 4 hours. And again, remember that he doesn't know me. I barely know him, other than what I've seen in his videos. But we sat there and talked for a good 4 hours or so. He listened to me. He shared advice. He prayed for me. We ate. I forgot what we ate, but we ate something. And then he took me into this room where he's got all these books and resources and stuff. And he's like he's going through, and he's just pulling stuff off the wall. And he's like, here, take this, take this, take this. And it was just again, just a breath of fresh air is the best way I could explain that. I mean, when you meet somebody who is truly authentic, they're just people that you'll never forget, no matter how much time passes by. And for him being who he was, I'll always be so grateful and thankful for the years that I did get to know him and share some time with him. But one thing that when you meet an authentic Christian, like, you realize that they're not just trying to put a Band-Aid on a problem, and then send you off so you can go to someone else or be a bother to someone else. That's not what an authentic Christian does. He invested in me. And if there was any doubt about his authenticity, that was, which I didn't have any, but put to rest a few months later, if we fast forward, I talked to our pastor. I talked to our pastor that the church I was going to, and said, hey, could we get Father Knight to come down and do a retreat? And so they agreed to it, and so we flew him down, and he did like a 3-day retreat at our church. And I was the one in charge of just picking him up, taking him from where he was sleeping to the church to do the retreat, and then back and forth, and just kind of just driving him around wherever he needs to go. And I'll never forget this, but we're driving to I can't remember if it's the first or second night, but one of those nights of the talk, and it's not a ton of people. There's probably a couple hundred people, 200 or 300 people, waiting for him to come talk. And so we pull up to the church, and we're kind of like right on time, and we're having a good conversation. And I cut off the car, and then he just sits there. I mean, he's talking, but he's not like ready to get out the door and move on to the next thing. He was invested in me, just me as an individual. He couldn't care less about all the people that are waiting on him to give his talk. He was 100% in the moment and present with me And, that's just something that you don't, or at least for me, it doesn't happen too often. We're always thinking, 10 steps ahead of where we need to go or what we need to do. And here's this man who people are waiting on him, and he's basically, he didn't say it, but he's like, I don't care. I'm talking with you right now, and that's what matters. Um, and that was a lesson for me to learn because, I'm knowing that he needs to get in there. I've got one hand on the door, and I'm like, okay, let's open the door and let's go. And he's just like, no. So we just sat there and talked for 5 or 10 minutes, walked in a few minutes late. And, but that's just a moment a memory that I'll always have of him. And another thing that I'm just truly grateful for, that he was able to demonstrate that level of authenticity and care. And I'd like to think that it helped make me a better Christian, being able to see that example and be able to do that for others. So if you're like I was, I just want to encourage you that, I don't pretend to know God's plan or His ways or His timing on everything, but He does have a plan, and His timing's perfect. And He will put somebody in your life. If you're in one of those ruts of life like I was, He will send relief. He'll send help. He will put the person in front of you that you need to talk with. I have 100% faith that He'll do that. Another thing that this part of my life taught me was that it was a humbling experience because it opened my eyes, and this didn't come until probably a couple months later, that I realized that, my gosh, I was just like those people that I'm complaining about. I wasn't being authentic. And if I play the game of going along with the pre-programmed and the robotic responses, that's not doing them any favor. I can't expect everybody to be mind readers and understand, what's going on inside my head if I'm not willing to share that. We all get caught up in the busyness of life, and people, we're just not meant to be a numbers game. So for me, and I hope for you, let's follow Father Knight's example and just treat the person in front of you with, such dignity and respect that they just won't have any doubt in their mind that they know that me and you and whoever cares about them. It'll set a new course for their life and yours too. Hope to see y'all next time.